The Upper Snake River Watershed.
Created by Jaren Hutchinson, Johny Tallerico, and Joshua Ferrell.
The Snake River originates in Wyoming near Yellowstone National Park and flows across southern Idaho before finally turning north into Oregon, where it meets the Columbia River. The mighty Snake River begins as two smaller rivers, the South Fork and the Henry's Fork, which then eventually flows nearly 1,100 miles, which makes it the ninth longest river in the United States. Even though the Snake River is continuous all the way to the Columbia River, the Upper Snake River watershed is considered everything above Milner Dam. While the Snake River is the largest river in the Upper Snake River watershed, it isn't the only river that can be found in the nearly 25,000 square miles that make up the Upper Snake River watershed. In fact, the Snake River has over 20 major tributaries that run into it. The Snake River itself is the Columbia River's largest tributary, which historically connects this river and in turn the entire watershed to the Pacific Ocean. The Upper Snake River watershed is found almost entirely in southern Idaho, but has headwaters in Wyoming and Nevada.
This watershed regularly attracts thousands of recreationalists that come here every year to experience world-class fishing and boating. In fact, the fishing here is of such high quality that it has achieved the status of being a blue ribbon trout stream. To be a blue ribbon trout stream, the state of Idaho claims that the area must be extremely high quality for anglers and wildlife enthusiasts. These rivers make up much of the trout production of the state of Idaho. It is for this reason that the state of Idaho and its residents heavily depend upon the economic benefits that they receive from outdoor enthusiasts. However, trout are not the only species of fish that can draw large crowds of recreationists to the Upper Snake River watershed. Steelhead, Chinook salmon, and sockeye salmon draw people from all across the United States as long as the state has fishable seasons on them. The salmon in this area are a sight to see and play a considerable role of paramount importance to the health of the Upper Snake River watershed system, but we'll get onto that later.
While the Upper Snake River watershed sounds like a dream getaway, there is cause for concern. Over the last few decades, the Upper Snake River watershed has seen a substantial decrease in water quality and quantity. Much of what people enjoy about this river are threatened by current management and practices.
Collectively, all the water in the Upper Snake River watershed is an important source of irrigation water for potatoes, sugar beets, and other crops. It also supports a vibrant recreation industry. As mentioned earlier, the Upper Snake River watershed is world famous for the fantastic trout and salmon fishing, which draws thousands of visitors and millions of dollars to this region every year. In fact, just the Henry's Fork and South Fork alone combine to bring in $41 million a year from recreation fishing opportunities, which is a large amount compared to the $11.7 million that the Henry's Fork and South Fork bring in yearly from general recreation and boating. The Upper Snake River watershed has such great fishing opportunities because it is a great nursery for many of the baby fish to survive. This allows more fish to survive, and the abundant amount of food present allows these fish to grow to sizes that often cannot be found anywhere else in the Intermountain West. The most often targeted fishing species in this watershed include several variations of the cutthroat trout, brown trout, brook trout, and steelhead, with the occasional Chinook and sockeye salmon, depending on the year.
The Upper Snake River watershed and its surrounding areas also provide great hunting opportunities that range from small game all the way up to black bear and Rocky Mountain elk. Many valued terrestrial species call this watershed home and rely on the water that it provides. Although these species don't live in the water in this watershed, all depend on having good water quality and quantity for their survival.
The Upper Snake River also has an important groundwater system underlying the eastern Snake River Plain in Idaho and is believed to be the largest aquifer system west of the Continental Divide in the United States. This aquifer system provides drinking water to over 300,000 people and was designated as a sole source aquifer by the United States Environmental Protection Agency in 1991. A sole source aquifer is defined as an aquifer that provides at least 50% of water for the people living above it without a reasonable economic, legal, or physical substitute.
The available water resources have been overallocated for many years in the Upper Snake River watershed, which has led to slowly declining water levels along with increasingly poor water quality. In fact, the Idaho Division of Water Resources actually said that the Snake River during certain times of the year is allowed to have little to no flow. The reasons behind water depletion from this river is that it is being used to not only supply the water needs for an increasing human population, but also to irrigate many of Idaho's crucial crops.
Communities, big industries, and people all along the Snake River discharge their treated sewage and wastewater into the Snake River and rely on the river's flow to mix with their treated pollution to keep the river quality safe enough for people and fish. However, because much of the available water is being taken away from the river, there is very little water left to adequately mix and dilute the pollution. Fertilizer, manure, and other chemicals and pollutants also regularly wash into the river and greatly increase the nutrient load from failing septic tanks, wastewater treatment plants, broken sewer lines, and animal waste. Because this area is hot and full of agricultural and other pollution, algal blooms grow more easily in many of the reservoirs in this area, killing fish and prompting warnings for humans and their pets to stay out of the water. Unfortunately, in some areas, it is now unsafe to recreate in or eat fish from this watershed.
There have been 4 dams built by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, resulting in 140 miles of slack water reservoirs, preventing salmon and cutthroat trout from migrating to crucial high elevation spawning and rearing habitat in central Idaho, northeast Oregon, and southwest Washington. This system of dams and reservoirs kills 50 to 80% of juvenile salmon and steelhead as the fish make their way downstream to the ocean. So after previously discussing the economic impact of this fishery on the great state of Idaho, one can see that a further decrease in fishing opportunities could be catastrophic to this region's economy.
The upper Snake River watershed is currently facing many issues, of which none have simple or easy fixes. However, there are currently many efforts being put together by many groups that are already starting to improve this watershed. The main restoration efforts with this watershed are focused on existing and planned construction of dams that are blocking salmon from spawning grounds, pollution entering the water from large companies and cities in and around Idaho, and low levels of water that are being used to irrigate crops.
Hundreds of facilities dump millions of gallons of pollutants into the Snake River and its tributaries every year. While we don't quite know how to handle this problem, some believe that the solution to pollution might just be using proper application of the Clean Water Act to bring these regions back to balance. There have also been a few very important laws that have been passed to limit the amount of pollution entering this area over the last few years. One of these laws are that runoff from feedlots is no longer allowed to be dumped into the river. It has been a rather long and slow road, but changes are being made in efforts to restore this watershed.
Current restoration projects by Trout Unlimited are aiming to improve spawning habitat to help native cutthroat trout for the upper Snake River watershed, to protect prime fishing areas by removing fish barriers and restoring the flow of the streams. Trout Unlimited, along with its partners, are stepping up its efforts to ensure the upper Snake River watershed remains prime cutthroat trout habitat well into the future.
If we were able to restore the Snake River and the upper Snake River watershed, we have proof that the salmon fishing season would help account for the money lost from taking down the dams that produce this region's energy. In fact, a rare salmon fishing season in 2001 generated nearly $90 million in economic impacts in Idaho, an amount that would more than double if wild salmon and steelhead are restored to the population levels of the 1950s. In a study done by Dr. John Loomis in 2005, it is shown that restoring the salmon run in Idaho could result in twice the regular catch number for this watershed. If achieved, the Henry's Fork and the South Fork would bring in nearly $17 million more to the areas than they already do.
If you would like to get involved in saving the Snake River and the upper Snake River watershed, you can visit the American Rivers website at americanrivers.org/Snake River, or you can visit the Idaho Conservation League at idahoconservation.org/Saving the Snake River. Both the American Rivers and the Idaho Conservation League are leading the way to push for policies that will cut down on the amount of pollution entering the rivers in and around the watershed, and also the removal of dams that would allow the salmon to move farther up both the Columbia and Snake River tributaries. While there are many other groups and societies that are currently trying to save the snake, the American Rivers and the Idaho Conservation League also understand that there needs to be some economic benefits to remove the dams to make the removal feasible. These are our suggestions, however, so if you are interested in getting involved, we encourage you to do so in any way that you can. Thank you. Now get out there and go fishing.